good morning, and welcome to this special Island Stat Sports Talk. I'm your host, Earl Baston. Joining me is none other than the president of CONCACAF, Mr. Victor Montagliani. First of all, welcome back to Bermuda. You've got enough stamps in your passport now to say that you know your way around the island.
Yes, I do. It's a pleasure being back on this beautiful island and sort of breaking bread with the football family. So it's great being back.
Sure, sure. The eve of you being elected 9 years ago. When you were elected on May 12th, 2016, what was your initial vision? And then we'll get to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, my initial vision was to unite the Confederation. It had, unfortunately, a 50 plus year history of division between our three main regions, the Caribbean, Central America, and North America, and even divisions within some of those regions internally.
Okay.
And my number one goal was to unite the Confederation. We changed our logo because of it, illustrating the 41 diamonds that are member federations. Because I think only when you have that unity, clarity, and candor in terms of where you need to go, where you've been and where you need to go, that you can start then not only focusing on the right things, which is football. Our philosophy has always been from day one to have a football first philosophy, not a small p politics, not agendas, regional agendas. It has to be a football first philosophy. And that was sort of the vision from day one. And if you have that vision, many of the things will fall into place, whether it's governance, whether it's development, whether it's competitions. But I knew that that was the key to sort of riding the ship and sort of setting it in the right direction.
Yeah. Looking back at your tender, what would you say has been the most satisfying thing for you personally in achievements of you being the president?
I think there's two things that I'm very proud of. The first thing is, I guess, similar to a computer, since we're talking on Zoom here. First is the hardware. The hardware is sort of setting up our competitions. Now we have a plethora of competitions. Our Nations League, both on the men and women's side. Our Gold Cup has expanded. Our youth has expanded. And that has given many of our federations more opportunities to compete, accessibility of our competition, so everybody competes. So that has been the hardware that I'm very proud of. And in fact, no irony, I guess, where I announced the Nations League concept was right here in Bermuda in 2017. So that's the hardware. I think the other part is like any computer, you need software. And the software has been the humanity of our confederation. The sort of everybody lifting up their sleeves, all the 41 presidents, the 41 federations, understanding what the vision was, and sort of working all together. Yes, healthy debate, always issues to solve, but also it's the unity. And it's palpable when you come to one of our events, whether it's a Congress, whether it's a president's meeting. It's very palpable in terms of the unity of the presidents and the confederations. And I don't mean just, for instance, Caribbean presidents. I'm talking about now the dialogue and what's happened between the Caribbean and Central America, vice versa, and also obviously with North America. And so that to me is what I'm most proud of. It actually, when you come to events, it feels like a family event. And I think that to me, that's where we've come a long way, and that what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. The region is set to host the World Cup in 2026 for the men, and we've put our I guess our country forward, or our region forward, to host the women in 2031.
Yeah.
Hosting these major events, and when you look around our region, we have some small countries that are involved and so forth. But how does that unify CONCACAF in being able to say we're part of being host of, whether or not it's in the country that you're from? How does that bring us all together in a sense?
Yeah, first of all, it's great when we all compete for World Cups, but it's a little bit more special when you're competing for one that's in your backyard.
Hmm.
And obviously, events is one of the driving forces of making your sport relevant on the global map. And so I think it's important to always have these kind of events. Obviously, we have our own events, but also having global events like a World Cup
Hmm.
is also very special. And we even have the Club World Cup this summer here in our backyard. But I think, bringing it back to Bermuda, I think it's important because, and I had a great meeting with the Premier yesterday, and the Minister of Sport. And, I think one of the things that's important here is, and even last night I went to the award ceremony, is I think is knocking on the door of getting to the next level. It's kind of, being in our League A, it's been in our League B, it's been in the Gold Cup, it's been in Gold Cup qualifying. I think Bermuda has the unbelievable potential of getting to the next level. Obviously, you have two big World Cup qualifiers coming up in June, which could give you an opportunity to get to the final round. But I think it's about, and I said this last night at the awards, it's a great event, there's awards, but it's not about awards, and it's not about trophies. It's great to win your local trophies. I think you need to put Bermuda first. Um, like we did with football. When you put Bermuda first, you put football first. It's not about your club in isolation. It's what your club can do for your country. And it's about not retaining your players just for your club so you can win the FA Cup in Bermuda. It's about losing your players to the next level, whether it be a professional level and a national team. And I think that sort of dynamic shift, I know it is the BFA is starting to do that, but I think it's important that the membership and the clubs buy into that. And I said that last night at the award ceremony, because I think if that happens, that will help Bermuda um, get to the next level. I mean, with all due respect, when Bermuda does well and wins, that is a moment for this country. When a club does well locally, it's a moment for that club, and it's great, and you celebrate it. But I'm sure if I asked you, Earl, who won the league here in 2001, I don't think you'd remember it. But if
No.
I asked you the great moments of Bermuda football, you could probably recite every single one of them. And so I think it's important because that sort of philosophy then cascades back to the clubs, back to the community. And so it's a great circular. I call it the circle of relevance. But if it doesn't happen where you're pushing this way, it's not going to circle back. So that was sort of, I guess, a bit of a challenge to the members in the clubs here, and many of them, I spoke to last night, they get it, and I think that's the next evolution for the BFA, because I think they're right on the precipice of some very good international success.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing that I constantly acknowledge is the fact that the gap comes when you speak of the amateur level as opposed to the professional level. In our region, we have some countries that have professional teams, and in our region, we have pure amateur leagues. How do we close that gap? Because the ultimate thing is, yes, everybody's ambition is to make the World Cup, but if you're a part-time person, you're not able to put in this much time and reap the benefits as a full timer. So how do we in the region close that gap just a little to make it even that much stronger?
Yeah, so I think it's focusing on how do you get your players in the proper environment and understanding there's a many leagues. If you want to get to that level, and I'll use the Canadian example because
Mhm.
I was when the Canadian Premier League started 8 years ago. um, you have to be realistic if you want to compete at that level. Having a player that plays in your domestic amateur league just go to the national team directly, and then thinking you're going to get results against some of our top eight teams, you might get one result, but the sustainability is really hard. I think your leagues need to be development leagues, focusing on players that are under 23, not on
Mhm.
players that are 35, 36, 37, and having those players then move on to the next level, whether it be on the mainland, whether it be overseas, because then that builds your pool of players that you can call back. So the players start here, great, but the reality is that you got to get to a point where you have a pool of players, let's say 30, 40 players that are playing in those fully professional environments that you can then call back to your national team, because your local leagues are really a development league. They're to have a direct link between an amateur league to a national team and expect you to have sustainable success at the international level. That's unrealistic. Maybe 30 years ago was fine, but the game has gone to another level, and we need to, realize that and actually keep up with it. And I say this here in Bermuda, but it resonates in many of our members, and quite honestly, in many members in FIFA, not just here in CONCACAF.
Yeah. You talk about the unity, the family, and football first in the region. Your last opportunity to speak to the Congress of CONCACAF, just about a month ago. What was your strongest message to the membership?
I think the strongest message, we showed a video called "The Untold Story," and it started initially with a video. The start of the video was what happened in 2015. We all know what happened. Netflix has documented that quite well. And that was sort of the start of sort of, I came in right after that with with my staff and with the team. We built a new team. We built a new confederation. Ironically, the first person you see in that video talking about what happened, where we came from, and what we are, it was David Sabir. He features prominent in the video in the beginning there, and he hits the nail on the head. We were morally bankrupt, we were financially bankrupt, and we were football bankrupt. And now that evolution, after now almost 9 years, is our financial house is in order. We've built a sustainable business. Our moral house is in order. And it's led by not just me. It's the Federation presidents. People like your own president, Mark Waite. And our football house now is in order. We have a plethora of games, youth, Nations League, Gold Cup, and it's now it's healthy. And that was the message to our Congress. But the message was, this wasn't done by one person. It wasn't done by the president of CONCACAF in isolation. It was done by my council, my staff, and the federations. Because if the federations are not pulling in all one direction, they don't buy into that transformation doesn't happen. So I think it's kudos to federations like the Bermuda Football Association and the other 40 that are in our confederation.
Yeah. I want to thank you very much, Mr. President. I know you have to go. Hopefully we can get together next year at one of the World Cup venues, have a chat.
Be great.
And hopefully we get one of our regional CONCACAF nations into that final. Would that be a wonderful way to end?
It would be an unbelievable moment to, as I've already laid that out, that ambition that out of the possible 8 countries that qualify, I'm not going to say which one, but I expect one of them to get to the semifinal. So there we go.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Safe journey back, and continue the journey that we're on, and keep the 41 nations of CONCACAF very, very positive and supportive of what you've been able to help them accomplish, because we've played more football in the last nine years than we probably played in the 50 years prior to that.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Earl. Great talking to you always, and stay well, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Take care.